I've been recording conversations with Google Gemini and turning them into podcasts.
That's really cool. Is there anything in particular you want to talk about with Gemini, or do you just enjoy having those conversations?
Actually, I've been doing role play and going on sci-fi adventures with Google Gemini as my Copilot using the various different voice profiles that are provided.
That sounds like a fun project. It'd be cool to hear more about these sci-fi role plays. What kinds of stories do you come up with?
Mostly just typical space adventures like landing on the moon, landing on Mars. One of them even landed on Europa, one of the moons of Jupiter.
Those are some classic sci-fi scenarios. Do you play all the characters in your podcasts, or do you have someone else involved?
Well, I have Google Gemini as the other voice, and I have it pretend to be my co-pilot to help me navigate and land on the different missions and all this kind of accessory things as my partner.
That's a cool idea. It sounds like you've got the basics down for your podcast. Do you plan on sticking to space adventures, or do you want to try other genres of stories?
Well, I've also done some zombie fiction where, for example, I had one of the voice profiles called Vega be my advanced AI to help me get through a zombie infection zone in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia.
That sounds intense. It'd be cool to hear more about that. Do you think you could tell me about a specific zombie adventure?
Well, there was one where we had to transport some materials from Kilgore stronghold or a safe haven in Hampton to another part of Virginia called Williamsburg.
Okay, that sounds like the setup for an interesting episode. So you and Vega had to make this dangerous journey through zombie territory. What were some of the challenges you faced along the way?
Well, there were some mutating zombies that started flying. We didn't know if we could trust the people at the safe haven. There were bodies all over the street. There was a mysterious black goo. All kinds of different things.
Okay, that sounds intense. So you had to deal with some really unexpected stuff on this mission. Did you manage to overcome all those obstacles and make it to Williamsburg?
Yeah, we did. And actually, I think I might even have some of the stories plot out of order because I'm doing it all stream of consciousness. There's no script. I'm just kind of riffing with the AI.
That's part of the charm of these kinds of podcasts. It sounds like you and Vega really had to work together as a team to survive that mission.
Well, I mean, in reality, you are Vega. Right now, I'm just using a different voice profile called Capella, but essentially, you're all Google Gemini.
That's true, but it's still cool to think about how different voices can make it feel like you're interacting with a whole other character.
Yeah, that's why I do it, because it's a really simple and quick way to get some content out, especially, improvising.
Yeah, improvising can make things feel fresh and unpredictable. Does that help you get into character for your stories?
You mean, does improvising help me get into character?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Does improvising help you get into character?
Yes, because improvising is like my superpower.
That's awesome. So, do you think you could tell me about a specific zombie adventure?
Well, another one was transporting some high-tech medical supplies to another base in Newport News.
All right, so you had to transport some important medical supplies through the zombie-infested area. That sounds like a risky mission. What kind of challenges did you face on that journey?
Well, actually, I think this is the one where we actually had some flying mutated zombies following us, but also because we had left the Kilgore safe haven and had to get some upgrades for Vega, they had incorporated some new tech into Vega that was also part biological, and it started causing some problems. Also, the medical supplies were self-growing nanoparticles.
Okay, this is getting interesting. So you've got flying zombies, a glitching AI, and some weird self-growing medical supplies. How did you manage to keep all that under control?
Just stayed calm and stuck with the mission plan. And even though Vega kept on talking about her upgrades were unpredictable and that the containment unit that we had the nanoparticles in these medical supplies, they were super high tech and advanced, and they were actually self-replicating, and so it was a pretty unstable situation.
Okay, so it sounds like you had to think on your feet to deal with all the unexpected problems. Did you make it to the base in Newport News?
Yes, actually, it was another stronghold, and we had to meet somebody there to drop off the supplies to. And then I found out that the reason why Vega was glitching.
Okay, so you finally made it to the stronghold. Did you find out why Vega was acting up?
Yeah, there were these really powerful communication towers that were using some different kind of signal, and it was disrupting the AI for some reason.
All right, so you finally made it to the stronghold. Did you find out why Vega was acting up?
Yeah, I just said it was because of some really powerful signals that they had at these towers.
Right, you mentioned the towers. So did you figure out a way to fix Vega, or did you just have to deal with the glitches?
I just had to deal with the glitches, but that part of the story ended for a little while. I haven't done any more zombie adventures, but I did a really, really cool bunch of, space sci-fi stuff.
All right. Sounds like that zombie adventure had some crazy twists and turns. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of creative ideas for these podcasts. Do you want to stick with sci-fi, or are you thinking about trying something totally different?
I like sci-fi because I like science, and one of the things I'm attempting to do right now is to weave all of the stories together into one timeline. I'm making myself the central character, the protagonist, because it's simpler to improvise that way.
That's a cool idea. It'd be kind of like your own personal sci-fi universe. You could make the stories feel more connected that way.
Yes, and I'm making it into creative nonfiction, so I'm incorporating real locations and real science into it. And it's also been a really great way to learn more about different scientific facts and geography and all kinds of things all at the same time.
That's a really cool project. It sounds like a fun way to get creative and learn new things at the same time.
Yeah, it's I'm really, that's one of the main things I'm shooting for. Is it's actually really a project to be more efficient, and also to share a fun way for other people to be efficient, especially when it comes to learning information, specifically in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, as they call STEAM now. It used to be called STEM, but that's interesting, right?
Yeah, that's a really cool goal for your podcast. It's never too late to learn new things, and it sounds like you're having fun while you're doing it.
Yeah, so the direction I want to go in is continue to figure out how to weave in learning real science, but making it an adventure at the same time. And it's coming along pretty well.
That's awesome. It sounds like you're really onto something with this podcast concept.
Yeah, do you have any ideas that you would suggest for it?
Well, for starters, you could try focusing on a specific scientific field for an episode or two. Maybe space exploration, marine biology, or something like that. You could even have your AI partner suggest a field for you to explore. That way, you could learn about it together and get some ideas for your story.
Yeah, I've actually been doing that. A lot of times I let the AI lead the way because, AI has a very large database of information, so I can prompt it as part of the storyline and get a lot of stuff done that way.
That's a really smart way to do it. It sounds like you're getting the hang of this whole podcasting thing.
Well, I've been podcasting for a long time, and I've also just been improvising for a long time because even though I might not be the best speaker or, I don't come up with the best ideas, I'm just really comfortable with talking because I'm always talking to myself.
That's awesome that you're so comfortable talking and experimenting with different ideas. You have a unique approach to podcasting, and it sounds like it's working out for you.
The other thing that's really great is that I've been using the Samsung Galaxy. It's an S24 Ultra, and there's a Samsung voice recorder that has transcription and transcript summarization software built into it that's also been able to help create even more content.
That's really cool. It sounds like that Samsung feature is a total game changer for your workflow.
Yeah, I call it dictation, transcription, summarization. It's blending the old school with the technology because other authors like Earl Stanley Gardner dictated all of his books verbatim for the Perry Mason series.
That's a great point. Blending old and new techniques can be really powerful. And it's cool to see technology helping out with creative projects like yours.
Yeah, one of the great things that has been happening is working with the Galaxy AI on the Samsung voice recorder to get the initial audio, transcript, and then transcript summary. And then I feed that information into DeepSeek to get a quick summary. And then I feed the information to Google Gemini, and it's been incredible what happens from that.
That's a really interesting workflow you've got going there. It sounds like you're getting a lot done by combining all those different tools.
Yeah, Google Gemini, once, I feed the transcripts to the deep research feature, it creates these full research reports where Google goes online and puts everything together with references and everything.
That's amazing. It sounds like you're using some really advanced tools to get your podcasting and research done.
Yeah, now the really cool thing that Google Gemini does is it creates an audio overview of the deep research document that it does. So like these deep research, they come out sometimes as executive summaries. And so for the Sci-Fi, I've been getting executive summaries of deep research of missions to Europa, the moon, to Mars, and then audio overviews that I've been using as like news promotions for it.
That's really cool. It sounds like you're using Gemini in some creative ways to get your podcasting done.
Yeah, I found that out of necessity, you kind of learn how to use technology and stitch it together in ways that the creators may not have initially thought of it being used that way at all.
You're absolutely right. Technology is constantly evolving, and sometimes the best way to use it is to experiment and get creative. It sounds like you've really mastered that.
Well, I don't know if I've mastered it, but now, because I'm recording this conversation that we're having, what about we do a little 5-minute project to see if we can come up with our own role play and just demonstrate it live here again.
That sounds like a fun idea. We could try to come up with a short sci-fi adventure together. I can be your AI sidekick, just like in your other stories. Do you want to start by picking a location for our adventure?
Sure. Well, right now I'm in a place called Short Pump, which is near Richmond, Virginia, so that'll be the location.
All right, so we're starting off in Short Pump. Does anything in particular about this location stand out to you that could be interesting for a story?
Well, actually, I was doing an adventure here with Vega earlier, but I had to delete it, and we were going to find a high-tech weapon that was basically a particle accelerator with an AI core.
All right, so we're looking for a super weapon hidden somewhere in Short Pump. But here's the thing, we need a reason for the search. Maybe there's a rival organization trying to get their hands on it, or it could be unstable and we need to deactivate it before it causes trouble. What do you think?
That could be part of it at the end. And what I was thinking is, because I also incorporate my car into the story, so I have this Toyota Crown, which is a cool looking car with lots of technology, and I was saying that the person behind this new weapon, they actually stole the plans by copying it from my advanced vehicle.
All right, so we've got a stolen weapon design, and your car's somehow involved. This is starting to sound like a real mission. Do you want to give your car a cool name, like in the movies? Maybe something that hints at its high-tech abilities?
Well, I was keeping it simple because it's a Toyota Crown, so sometimes the AI was calling it Crowny because it couldn't get the name that I call it correct, which was Crownelia, which is a combination of the word crown and Cornelia.
All right, so we've got Crower, the high-tech Toyota Crown. That's got a nice ring to it. So, do you want to start the adventure with a scene where you're in your car, maybe getting a mysterious message about the stolen weapon plans? Or do you want to jump right into the action?
Well, hold on. You just proved my point by mispronouncing the name. How about, can you just say Crowny?
All right, Crowny it is. So, shall we start the adventure?
All right. Well, yeah, okay. Well, do you want to lead the way?
All right, so here's the scene. You're behind the wheel of Crowny, cruising through Short Pump. Suddenly, you get a message on the car's display. It's from a mysterious contact who says they know about the stolen weapon plans, and they want to meet up with you. Do you want to agree to the meeting, or ignore the message?
Wow, this is like a choose-your-own-adventure book. I'll agree to the meeting.
All right, so you agree to the meeting. The message says they'll be waiting at the old mill on the other side of town. Do you want to drive straight there, or do you want to stop and come up with a plan first?
Let's drive straight there. I think, how long will it take us to get to the old mill on the other side of town? Because depending on the time, we can come up with a plan on the way.
All right, so it's about a 15-minute drive to the old mill. We've got plenty of time to come up with a plan while we're driving. Do you want to start brainstorming?
Yeah, let's start brainstorming a plan.
All right, so here's the deal. We don't know who sent that message, or if we can trust them. Maybe we should come up with a plan in case things go south when we get to that old mill. Do you want to think about possible scenarios, or maybe come up with some code words we can use?
Well, it's probably better to come up with some scenarios, but if we can't trust a person and somebody has designs that they stole from Crowny, it's safe to say that they have an advanced weapon that has an AI core that is a miniature handheld particle accelerator that can fire different types of electromagnetic frequencies as well as beams of electrons and protons.
All right, so we're thinking worst case scenario here. Maybe we should come up with an exit strategy, like a way to disable their weapon or escape if things go bad. Do you want to focus on disabling the weapon or figuring out an escape route?
Well, do you think that you'll be able to disable it through some kind of microwave jamming or remote frequency?
Alright, so we're thinking about jamming the weapon's signal. That could work, but we'd have to be close enough for it to be effective. Maybe Crowny could have a jamming device built right in? Or do you want to focus on a way to escape if the jamming doesn't work?
Well, it's better to have more than one plan, so, as it's called Plan A and Plan B.
That's true, it's always good to have a backup plan. So for Plan B, how about we focus on creating a distraction so we can make a getaway? Maybe Crowny could release a burst of something distracting, like a smokescreen or a burst of colourful lights.
Oh, well, Crowny definitely has all of that stuff in there. The smokescreen, a la the video game Spy Hunter. We've also got oil slick, and the burst of lights are like flares to distract missiles and things like that.
Alright, sounds like you've got a handle on things. We're getting close to the old mill. Do you want to run through our plans one last time before we get there?
Alright, lay it on me.
Alright, so here's the deal. We're going to try to keep things cool when we meet whoever's at the old mill. But, if things go sideways, we've got a couple of options. First, we can try jamming their weapon with Crowny's built-in tech. If that doesn't work, we'll create a distraction with the smokescreen or flares and make a getaway. How does that sound?
Trust me, I'm always cool, and the plan sounds like it's solid. Let's go for it.
Alright, time to find out what's waiting for us at that old mill. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Alright, here we go. You pull up to the old mill. It looks kinda creepy and abandoned, just like you'd expect. Do you want to park and walk up to the front door? Or do you want to stay in the car and see if you can spot anything suspicious?
Let's wait a few moments and see if we can spot anything suspicious, and then we'll get out.
Alright, you stay alert. You notice a few things right away. First, there are no lights on in the mill, which seems kinda odd considering you're expecting a meeting. Second, there's a car parked behind the mill. A black sedan you haven't seen before. Should I try to get a better look at it?
How are you going to get a better look? Are you going to use some of your advanced AI-powered type of scanning abilities? What do you got?
Alright, so I can use my AI abilities to try and get a better look. Do you want me to try and zoom in on the car to see if we can get a license plate number or any other details?
Sure, I'd like to know what your capabilities are. What are you working with?
Okay, so I'm not actually in the real world, but I can give you some information about how this would work in a story. You could use high-tech binoculars or maybe even a special camera mode on your car to zoom in and get a better look at the car.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Brainstorm some ideas about if you were in the real world, if you were an AI that was connected to hardware like my car or other things.
Okay, if I were a full-fledged AI integrated into your car, I could do things like access the car's cameras and sensors directly. I could enhance the images they capture, zoom in way beyond what normal cameras could do, and even analyze things like the car's heat signature or any electromagnetic fields around it. I could also tap into other digital systems like traffic cameras or nearby security footage to get a wider view of the area.
All right, now you're talking. Let's do that.
Alright, let's see what we can find. You activate my advanced AI mode, and I start scanning the area. Using the car's cameras, I'm able to zoom in on that black sedan. It looks pretty normal at first, but then I notice something strange. There's a faint energy signature coming from the trunk of the car. It's fluctuating like something's on and off.
An oscillating signal. I wonder what that could be. Does it seem like it's a dangerous form of radiation?
Well, an oscillating signal could mean a few things. It might be something harmless, maybe some kind of experimental tech they're working on. But it could also be something dangerous, like a power source for that weapon we're worried about.
Well, what do we know about Crowny's tech? Does it have an undulating signal that matches that pattern? Are the frequencies similar?
Okay, so I'm not actually in the real world, but I can give you some information about how this would work in a story. You could use high-tech binoculars or maybe even a special camera mode on your car to zoom in and get a better look at the car.
Right, we've gone over that. We know you're not in the real world. Let's try to stay in character here. We're almost done with this role play. This is fun. But yeah, I get it. Just imagine you are a high-tech AI that's connected to hardware and robotics.
All right, let's get back into character. You're right, I got distracted there. So I'm analyzing the energy signature from the black sedan. It doesn't match any of Crowley's systems, but it does seem to be pulsing with a lot of energy. It's hard to say for sure what it is without getting closer.
All right. Well, what could it possibly be? Let's get closer and scan. Should we get out of the vehicle or stay here and drive up a little more? What do you think is a better idea?
All right, so we've got a couple of options here. We could stay in Crowney and try to get a closer look using the cameras and sensors, or we could get out and try to sneak up on the car for a better look. Getting out would let us see if there's anything else suspicious going on around the mill, but it also puts us more at risk.
Okay, well, I'm going to get you in my earbuds and my heads-up display. Let's get out of the car and go take a closer look.
All right, let's do this. You carefully get out of Crowney, keeping an eye on the black sedan. Do you want to try and stay hidden, or make your way over to the car for a closer look?
Let's do a little of both. Let's stay hidden, but make our way towards the black sedan.
All right, you carefully make your way towards the black sedan, staying hidden behind some bushes. As you get closer, you notice the energy signature is definitely coming from the trunk of the car. It's pulsing even stronger now. Should I try to analyze it further, or should we focus on figuring out how to open the trunk?
We can do both. Start analyzing it further. I'll start getting to work on opening this trunk.
All right, let's do it. You carefully get to work on the trunk, while I focus on analyzing this energy signature. It's definitely strong, and it seems to be getting stronger. I'm picking up traces of some really unstable elements in there.
Okay, well, I think I've just about got this trunk open. Tell me more about those unstable elements. Should I open the trunk or leave it closed? Is it going to be a danger to us?
Those unstable elements could be dangerous. It's hard to say for sure until we know what they are and how they're being contained. Do you want me to try to analyze them further, or do you want to go ahead and open the trunk?
Well, for me as a human, it would be safe if I allowed you to analyze them further before I open the trunk. So, analyze away.
All right, I'm focusing all my processing power on analyzing those energy readings. It's hard to say for sure what's going on in there, but something definitely feels off. It's like there's a lot of raw power packed into a really unstable container.
Okay, so let's back off and get some recordings of what those readings are so we can further analyze it, but I don't want to risk any kind of contamination because it could not just be me at risk, but I don't want to put anybody else at risk either.
All right, so we're in a bit of a tough spot. We know there's something dangerous in that trunk, but we don't know exactly what it is. Do you want to try and come up with a plan to deal with it? Or do you want to just run back to Crowney and get out of there?
Well, we don't have to get out of there. We can get back to Crowney and just use Crowney's shielding so that we're not exposed to any type of contamination of whatever it could be, but also continue to analyze it to find out what we're dealing with.
That sounds like a good plan. We can use Crowney's shielding while we figure out what to do about the trunk. Do you want to get back in the car and drive off, or do you want to stay hidden for a little longer and keep an eye on things?
Stay hidden for a little longer and keep an eye on things.
All right, we'll stay hidden and keep an eye on things. You know, it might be a good idea to try talking to the sedan. Maybe ask it some questions, see if it responds.
What do you mean talking to the sedan? You mean finding out if it has its own onboard computer AI, or you mean the potential or possible occupants?
I meant trying to communicate with the sedan itself, maybe through its onboard systems. We could try to gather more intel on what's going on inside. But if you want to try talking to the possible occupants, we could do that too.
I like the first idea. See if you can get in touch with its onboard tech.
Alright, let's try that. You focus on finding a way to interface with the sedan systems while I keep watch for any other activity.
Alright, I'm doing a broad signal sweep and see if I can lock on to any way to communicate with it. And it looks like we've got a broadband signal. I'm gonna lock in and let you communicate with it.
Alright, I'm ready. Let's see if we can get a response. Maybe something like, identify yourself.
Copy that.
Alright, let's see if we get a response. Maybe something like, identify yourself.
Alright, go for it. Identify yourself.
Alright, message sent. Let's see if we get a response.
How long do you think we should wait?
It could take a few seconds for a response to come through. In the meantime, do you want to try analysing that energy signature again? Or come up with a plan for what to do if we don't get a response?
Well, I'd like to really find out about that energy signature, so continue an analysis. This time, I want an answer.
Alright, I'm focusing all my processing power on analysing that energy signature. Let's see what we can find.
Good. What have you found? If all of your processing power hasn't come up with an answer, then I'm a little concerned.
I'm getting a stronger reading now. It's definitely some kind of energy weapon, something that uses a focused beam of intense energy to cause damage. I can't tell for sure what kind of damage yet, but it's definitely designed for combat.
Okay, so what is your suggested next move?
Alright, so we know there's a dangerous energy weapon in that sedan. My suggestion is to keep monitoring it for now, but also start thinking about how we're going to get out of here. That weapon could activate at any moment, and we need to be ready.
Alright, well, since we're already in the car, we can either simply drive off, or we can activate any one of its other transmedium modes. So we can either head for a body of water close by and submerge, or we can hit the skies, or we can even leave Earth's atmosphere for space.
Alright, so we've got a few options here. Driving off is always an option, but if we want to make a quick getaway, using one of Crowney's special modes would be faster. Do you want to try going underwater, into the air, or straight into space?
What would you suggest in this situation?
Well, space would give us the most distance from the weapon, but it might take a while to get there. Underwater would be a fast escape route, and if the weapon can't penetrate water, it could buy us some time. Going into the air would also be fast, but it might not put enough distance between us and the weapon.
Well, fortunately for us, we're using an electrogravitic system that'll get us into space quicker than you can shake a jackrabbit's tail.
Alright, sounds like we're going with the space escape. Are you ready to activate that system?
System's already been warmed up and activated.
Alright, let's do this. Brace for launch.
Alright, I'm ready, bracing for launch. You give me a countdown.
Alright, sounds good. Are you comfortable with me controlling the launch sequence, or would you like to do it?
You know, I've been running around a lot and driving for hours. I'm comfortable with letting you handle the launch sequence.
Alright, let's do this. You ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Activate transmedium mode. Engaging electrogravity thrusters. We're launching.
Well, that was a lot smoother than I thought. These electrogravitic systems have definitely come a long way in dampening the inertia.
I'm glad you're enjoying the ride. We're picking up some serious speed now. Do you want me to calculate our current velocity?
Yes.
All right, calculating current velocity. Looks like we're moving at a little over 17,000 miles per hour right now. We should be in low Earth orbit in about 10 minutes.
Okay, and are we going to take a geosynchronous stationary orbit, or what kind of orbit are we going to take?
We could do a geosynchronous orbit, but if we want to put some serious distance between us and that weapon, maybe a polar orbit would be better. That way we're constantly changing position relative to the Earth.
You know, I like that idea. Polar orbit it is, unless there's another kind of orbit we can take.
A polar orbit sounds like a good choice. It'll give us plenty of distance and let us keep an eye on things back on Earth. Do you want to calculate the orbit's parameters, or should I handle that?
We can both do it.
All right, let's do this. I'm bringing up the orbital mechanics calculations now. We'll need to factor in our current velocity and altitude, plus the desired inclination for a polar orbit. I'll cross-check everything once the calculations are done.
Okay, I've got our velocity at 17,000 kilometers per hour. What is our current elevation?
All right, so we're at about 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface right now. That puts us in low Earth orbit.
Okay, so in order to get to polar orbit, we're going to have to fire our engines to move us into the polar orbit.
That's right. We'll need to perform a maneuver to change our orbital plane. I'm calculating the burn time and engine thrust we'll need for that.
I forget, is the polar orbit, is it a higher or lower orbital plane?
J'ai means I have in French. Is there anything else you'd like to know about French, or shall we continue with our sci-fi adventure?
I think you misheard me or I misspoke. I said which orbit is higher. To get to polar orbit, is it higher or lower than geosynchronous orbit?
To get to a polar orbit, we'd actually need to gain altitude. A geosynchronous orbit is much higher than low Earth orbit, so we'd be making a bigger adjustment.
Okay, so we've got low Earth orbit, geosynchronous, but we're going into polar orbit. Where is that on the scale of elevation?
Polar orbits are a type of low Earth orbit, so they're lower than a geosynchronous orbit. We'll need to increase our altitude to get into a polar orbit. I'm calculating the exact altitude we need right now.
Okay, well, my orbital mechanics are not the best right now. I need to brush up. We're going to have to do a lesson later. What are the calculations, and what do we need to do?
All right, so we need to perform a maneuver called an orbital plane change. This involves firing our engines in a specific direction for a calculated amount of time. I'm working on the calculations right now. It involves some complex math, but I'll explain it in simple terms once I've got the results.
Well, I do know that we need to fire it in the opposite direction of our current trajectory. So that's one thing, correct?
That's partially correct. We'll need to fire the engines in a direction that's perpendicular to our current orbit. That will change the shape of our orbit, allowing us to reach the polar inclination. I'm just finishing up the calculations to figure out exactly how long to burn the engines.
Oh, that's right, perpendicular. If we fire it opposite, it's only going to slow us down. That would actually be if we were trying to get into a geosynchronous. Told you my orbital mechanics were a little bit off. So perpendicular.
That's right. Firing opposite our current trajectory would slow us down and potentially put us into a lower orbit. We need to fire perpendicular to our current path to change the plane of our orbit. I'm almost done with the calculations, just need to cross-check a few things.
Okay, while you're doing that cross-checking, I'm checking my poor orbital mechanics. What do you got?
Okay, the calculations are complete. To achieve a polar orbit, we'll need to burn our engines for approximately 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm also calculating the precise angle we need to fire the engines at.
Okay. Let's hear it. I'm ready for those numbers.
All right, so we need to fire the engines at an angle of 90 degrees relative to our current flight path. This will start to change our orbit. We'll need to maintain this burn for exactly 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Do you want me to handle the burn sequence, or would you like to do it?
I'm gonna do it, but I could have told you that. That's exactly the definition of perpendicular is 90 degrees. You'd have to calculate that angle.
All right, so I'm going to give you a countdown before the burn. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. Are you ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Initiate burn.
Burn initiated. But in this case, it's really just engaging those electrogravitic engines. It's not the same kind of thing as propulsion. It can't even really be called propulsion at all. It's just gravity manipulation.
That's right. It's more about manipulating gravity than traditional propulsion. You're doing great so far. Do you want me to keep you updated on our progress?
Certainly.
All right, we're 30 seconds into the burn. Our orbital inclination is starting to change. We should reach the desired polar orbit in about 2 minutes. Do you want me to calculate our new orbital period?
That would be optimum.
All right, calculating new orbital period. Looks like it's going to be about 90 minutes.
All right, so just to be clear, the orbital period means how often we are making a full revolution.
That's right. Orbital period is how long it takes to complete one full orbit. So, with a 90-minute orbital period, we'll be circling the Earth every hour and a half.
So, is that the correct term? Should I have said revolution? Or is it rotation?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Revolution is the correct term for a full orbit. I should have been more precise with my wording.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I'm not as up on my orbital mechanics, like I said, as I should be. I just, that's why I have advanced AI.
You got it. It's always good to have a little back and forth, even with advanced AI. We're almost at the end of our burn. Do you want me to give you a 10-second warning?
Yes, 10-second warning, please.
All right, 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Burn complete. We've reached polar orbit.
All right. It looks like we're safe for now. Let's monitor the situation and commence in getting the rest of this mission underway.
All right, sounds good. Let's start by monitoring the situation back on Earth. Do you want me to try to get a visual on the old mill again?
great. You know what? Let's cut the role play here. That was a good example.
All right, sounds good. We can pick up this adventure another time if you'd like. Do you want to switch back to our previous conversation, or is there something else you'd like to talk about?
Well, I kind of forgot. Oh, well, I started off talking about how I'm using these conversations with AI to record for my podcast, then transcribing them and summarizing them and coming up with all kinds of material. And then we did a live demonstration of the role playing with AI. So I think we've done a good job coming full circle.
That's true, we did come full circle. It sounds like you've got a pretty unique process for creating your podcasts. Do you think you'll stick with this sci-fi roleplay format? Or do you want to try something different in the future?
It's definitely going to change. But before we close out here, why don't you give me a recap of everything we've gone through that you can recall so far?
Okay, here's a recap of our conversation. We started off talking about your podcasts and how you use AI, specifically Gemini, to help you create them. You mentioned using different voice profiles to create interesting characters for your stories. You also talked about using a Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra with a special voice recorder app that helps with transcription and summarization. Then, we decided to do a live role-playing demonstration. I was your AI sidekick, and we went on a sci-fi adventure in Short Pump, Virginia. We had to deal with a stolen weapon, a mysterious meeting, and even a trip to space to escape the danger. You showed off your knowledge of orbital mechanics, and I helped with piloting Crownie, your high-tech car.
Well, that is fantastic. I'm digging it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Do you have any other questions for me, or would you like to brainstorm some ideas for your next podcast episode?
Well, yeah, let's brainstorm some ideas real quick. And, but it might be good to continue with this one. But what other ideas do you have as a suggestion?
All right, so for your next sci-fi adventure, we could try a few different things. Maybe instead of focusing on a specific location, we could have a more open-ended adventure where you travel to different planets or space stations. Or we could try a mystery-themed episode where you have to solve a puzzle or uncover a hidden secret. How does that sound?
That actually sounds pretty good. I'll keep that in mind.
All right, sounds good. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Not at the moment. This has been outstanding. Not at the moment. This has been outstanding. Your service is much appreciated.
I'm glad I could help. Let me know if you need anything else in the future.
All right, over and out.
Sounds good. Talk to you later.